All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking shooting sports safety.
Okay.
And, whether you're a pro with years at the range or
Yeah.
just starting out,
Yeah,
we can all agree safety is the foundation, right?
absolutely. Got to have that.
So we're using this awesome guide, Safety First.
Great resource.
It's aimed at, like, everyone, any skill level.
Smart. Got to cover all the bases.
And our goal today, to really distill that essential safety knowledge.
Not just the surface stuff.
Exactly, going deeper so you walk away with practical stuff.
Stuff you can use right away.
Right at the range, competition, you name it.
Love that practical approach.
One thing that struck me about this guide, it's not just like a list of rules,
Yeah.
It gets into the WHY behind them,
Oh, that's crucial.
which really helps, I think, make those safe practices.
Yeah, more automatic, second nature.
Right, like you just do them without thinking.
That's the goal.
Speaking of which, the golden rule.
Wow, the classics.
Treat every firearm as loaded, never point at anything you don't intend to shoot.
Right.
Keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready.
All super important.
But honestly, we hear them so often they can sound...
Yeah, almost cliche, right?
Exactly. But the guide tells this story
Right.
about a seasoned military instructor doing this forever,
Okay.
and he calls these rules life insurance, not just rules.
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it.
Isn't it?
Really drives home the weight of it all.
Like, the consequences if you ignore them could be huge.
Life-altering, for sure.
And it's a good reminder, even if you're thinking, oh, I know this stuff.
Right, we all need those reminders.
These rules exist for a reason.
Born out of real experiences, hard lessons learned.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit, literally.
Okay, gear talk.
The guide's got a whole section on safety equipment,
Essential stuff.
but it goes beyond just a checklist.
Oh, I like that.
It's not just about having the gear.
Yeah, gotta understand it.
It's about knowing WHY each item is important.
How it keeps you safe, the whole picture.
Like eye protection seems obvious.
Yeah, who doesn't wear that?
But the guide points out it's not just about a stray bullet.
Okay.
Think ricochets, hot casings flying around.
Oh, right. Those things get HOT.
Even debris from the target itself.
Oh, yeah. Haven't thought about that.
It all adds up.
Definitely. Can't be too careful.
And let me tell you, getting whacked in the eye by a hot piece of brass.
Oof. Sounds painful.
Not fun. I actually remember
Yeah.
a friend at the range got a little burn on his hand.
Oh, no.
Just a casing, but he wasn't wearing gloves.
Shows you even small risks. You gotta think about them.
And that brings us to gloves.
Gloves, okay.
Something I hadn't really considered in depth before.
Interesting.
The guide mentions them, and it ties back to that first golden rule.
Treat every firearm as loaded, right?
Exactly. Even the heat from a barrel after firing.
Yeah, you touch that, you'll know it.
It can be dangerous, so gloves are smart.
Makes you think ahead, anticipate those little things.
Right, safety's all about being proactive, minimizing risk.
Like having that mindset going in.
All right, so we've got the right mindset, our gear sorted.
Okay, what's next?
Now we step onto the range, right?
The real deal.
And the guide, it emphasizes range etiquette,
Oh, I like this topic.
which at first you might think, oh, just being polite.
Yeah, common courtesy.
But when you consider you're surrounded by people with firearms,
It's a different level of seriousness, yeah.
it's about everyone's safety, not just being nice.
Absolutely, stakes are higher.
The guide stresses, follow the range rules, listen to the range officer.
Always good advice.
And I'm curious, what are some etiquette points that either surprised you or you think are just absolutely essential?
Ooh, good question. Let me think. One that people often overlook is muzzle awareness.
Muzzle awareness.
It's not just keeping your firearm pointed down range.
Yeah.
It's about being really conscious of where that muzzle is.
At all times.
Even with an unloaded gun. Like never pointed at another person. Even jokingly.
Absolutely not.
And be careful moving around. You don't want to sweep your muzzle across anyone.
Good point. People forget about that.
It's constant awareness, becomes second nature with practice, though.
So being truly present, focused is key.
For sure. No zoning out on the range.
The guide also mentions complacency as a huge risk factor.
Oh, that's a good one.
Why do you think that is, especially on a range?
Well, it's easy to get comfortable,
Familiar environment, you've been there before.
Yeah, you think, I got this.
And then your guard drops a bit.
Exactly, but with live ammo involved, even a moment of that.
Can have serious consequences.
It's not worth the risk.
So you're responsible for your safety, But
On
also,
everyone around you, too, yeah.
we all got to maintain that vigilance. Can't let it slip.
Right, like a shared responsibility. Everyone's looking out for each other.
Like driving on the road, kind of.
Exactly. You rely on other drivers to be safe, too.
Complacency can be contagious, but so can a commitment to safety.
Love that. Gotta spread that good attitude.
Now, for those listening who maybe they're thinking about competition, taking it up a notch,
Okay, yeah, competition's a whole other ballgame.
how does that change the safety considerations?
Well, it adds a whole new layer, for sure.
Because now you've got the pressure to perform.
The adrenaline, the time limits, yeah,
All those factors can...
mess with your habits, especially if you're not careful.
The guide even says mental preparation is part of safety.
Oh, that's interesting.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, when we're under stress, we tend to fall back on our ingrained habits.
Right, the stuff we do without thinking.
So if those habits are good, safety-focused.
Then you're more likely to stay safe, even when things get intense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if your training's been sloppy, or you haven't prioritized safety,
Then that pressure can really expose those weaknesses.
it's like a test. You want to be prepared.
One thing that stood out to me in the guide was
Yeah.
the emphasis on checking your equipment beforehand, meticulously.
Oh, that's crucial. Can't skip that.
And it's more than just a quick glance, right?
Right. Got to be thorough.
Imagine you're in a competition rapid fire stage,
Okay, yeah, high pressure.
and your firearm malfunctions.
Ugh. The worst timing.
If you haven't checked it properly, that jam could...
Lead to a negligent discharge, yeah. Especially with the stress and all.
It's a scary thought, right?
Nobody wants that.
So, those pre-competition checks,
Lifesavers, potentially.
not just the firearm either.
Right. Optics, magazines, everything needs a look.
Make sure it's all in working order.
A malfunction at the wrong time can be disastrous.
Absolutely so much to consider.
It's all about being prepared, minimizing those risks.
Okay, so we've covered mindset, gear, etiquette, even competition.
Good overview.
But the guide ends on something I found really powerful.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This idea that learning never stops.
Interesting.
Even when you think, oh, I'm a pro, I know it all.
Yeah, easy trap to fall into.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's spot on, honestly. Shooting sports, they're constantly evolving.
New tech, new techniques, for sure.
And new understandings of risks.
It's dynamic.
It is. Which means you always got to be learning.
Makes sense.
Doesn't matter how much experience you have, there's always more to learn, ways to improve, especially when it comes to safety.
I remember reading this story in the guide
Oh,
about this experienced shooter, thought he knew everything.
okay, classic.
And then this older gentleman shows him a new technique.
Ah, humbled him a bit.
Completely changed his grip and trigger control.
Wow, that's powerful.
It made him realize even experts need to stay humble.
Yeah, open to learning new things.
Have you ever had an experience like that?
You know, I have actually. I was at a training course
Okay.
and feeling pretty confident, like, I got this down.
Happens to the best of us.
And then the instructor, this guy's been doing this for decades.
Oh, wow.
He points out a tiny flaw in my stance.
Something you hadn't noticed before?
Never.
Hmm.
And it was a small adjustment, but it made a huge difference.
Wow, so even the little things,
Really drove home that point. Even small details matter.
especially for safety and performance.
Exactly. Made me realize, got to keep seeking out those expert opinions.
Stay open to feedback no matter how good you think you are.
That's the key to constant improvement.
So how do we find those good instructors, those reputable ranges?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question.
How can listeners avoid those bad training situations?
That's a topic for a whole other deep dive, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
But I can give you a few things to keep in mind.
Perfect.
First and foremost, look for certifications.
Certifications. Okay.
Reputable instructors, they should have credentials from recognized organizations. NRA, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, those kinds of places.
So it's like a seal of approval. They've been vetted.
Exactly. Shows they've met certain standards for knowledge and skills.
So don't be afraid to ask about their experience, too.
Oh, absolutely. How long have they been teaching? What's their background?
You want someone with a solid track record.
Right, not just someone who read a book last week.
It's like choosing any professional. Gotta do your research.
Exactly. And here's a crucial one. Pay attention to their communication style.
Communication style. Okay.
Do they welcome questions? Are they open to different approaches?
Or are they kind of rigid and dismissive?
You want an instructor who can explain things clearly.
Answer your concerns, make you feel comfortable asking questions.
Yeah, create a good learning environment.
And be wary of those big promises,
The guaranteed results or Master marksman in a weekend type
Yeah,
stuff.
those are red flags.
Safety and proficiency, they take time and practice.
No quick fixes.
Definitely not. Got to put in the work.
So humility is a big part of it, acknowledging we're always learning.
Absolutely. Especially for experienced shooters.
It's easy to think you've got it all figured out.
And then you stop being open to learning, you become complacent.
That's when mistakes happen.
The guide actually talks about learning from mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
Both your own and those of others. It's got a whole section analyzing common errors.
And how to avoid them.
I think that's a brilliant approach.
Yeah.
Analyzing mistakes, whether yours or someone else's, it's a huge learning opportunity.
It's like that saying, learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself.
Exactly. You get to see the why behind those safety rules.
Figure out how to avoid those pitfalls.
It's all about being proactive.
That's why it's so good to be part of a community, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Responsible shooters, sharing knowledge.
Sharing experiences, best practices.
Like collective learning, everyone getting better together.
It goes beyond just individual responsibility.
Yeah, it's about fostering a culture of safety.
Within the whole shooting community.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in upholding those high standards.
For ourselves and those around us.
It's about looking out for each other, promoting responsible shooting.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful, honestly.
I'm glad you're getting a lot out of it.
I've always known safety is important,
Okay.
but I hadn't really thought about it in such a nuanced way.
There's always more to learn.
So, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Good question.
What can they start doing right away to be safer?
Well, first and foremost, it's about cultivating a mindset of respect.
Respect.
Respect for the firearms themselves, for the rules and procedures,
Yeah,
and respect for yourself and those around you.
that's a good foundation.
It's about understanding that firearms, they demand our full attention, our responsible handling.
All the time, no exceptions.
Exactly. And that respect goes hand in hand with awareness.
So awareness, okay?
Being aware of your surroundings, your actions, the potential consequences.
Whether at the range or anywhere you might be handling a firearm.
It's about thinking ahead, being present in the moment.
And actively fighting complacency.
Oh, that's a big one.
Always striving to learn more, refine your skills.
Maintain those high safety standards even when you feel like you've got it all down.
It's a continuous journey, right?
It is. Always room for improvement.
This has been a fantastic exploration of shooting sports safety.
Glad you enjoyed it.
But before we wrap up this part, I have to ask,
Yeah.
what's that one final thought, that nugget of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let me see. You know, I think the most profound takeaway for me is this. Firearm ownership is a privilege, not a right.
That's powerful.
It's a responsibility that we carry every single time we handle a firearm.
Can you unpack that a little bit? What does that responsibility actually mean?
It means we have a duty to use firearms safely, ethically, and responsibly.
Okay.
We have a responsibility to be ambassadors for the shooting sports community.
Showing by our actions that we're worthy of that trust.
Exactly. It's recognizing that every time we handle a firearm,
We're representing not just ourselves, but the whole community.
it's bigger than just us.
It's a powerful message.
It is, because our actions can shape how people see shooting sports.
Influence laws, even impact the future of the sport.
It's acknowledging that collective responsibility, working together to keep shooting safe and responsible.
For generations to come.
That's the goal.
So it's about personal accountability, but also that shared commitment.
To the well-being of the entire community.
We're all in this together. And by upholding those high safety standards,
And promoting responsible ownership.
we create a positive and sustainable future for shooting sports.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a fantastic note to end this part on.
I agree.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening,
Glad to hear it.
and I hope it sparked a sense of curiosity in our listeners,
Curiosity and a desire to keep learning.
making safety their top priority.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Until next time, stay safe and keep learning.
Great advice. So, where were we? Ah, yes, finding those great instructors and ranges.
Right. Like, how do you know who to trust?
It's tough. There's a lot out there.
Especially for someone just starting out.
Yeah, can be overwhelming.
So certifications, that was your first tip.
Right, always a good starting point.
Like a baseline, gotta have those credentials.
Exactly. Shows they've been through some kind of vetting process.
Okay, and then experience, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's key.
You want someone who's been doing this for a while.
Right, not just a weekend warrior who decided to teach.
So how do you find that out? Just ask.
Don't be shy about asking. How long have they been teaching? What's their background in shooting?
Makes sense. You're essentially checking their resume.
Exactly. And this might seem obvious, but Pay attention to their communication style.
Well, interesting, like how they interact with you.
Yeah, are they open to questions? Do they listen to your concerns?
Or are they kind of like dismissive,
Exactly. You want someone who can explain things clearly, answer your questions.
make you feel comfortable asking, even if you think it's a dumb question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Learning should be a safe space.
What about those instructors who make big promises?
Oh, you got to watch out for those.
Like guaranteed results or become a sharpshooter in a day kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a red flag for me.
Why's that?
Because safety and proficiency, they take time and dedication.
There's no shortcuts. You got to put in the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyone promising a quick fix is probably cutting corners somewhere.
So humility is important, recognizing that you're always learning.
Couldn't agree more, especially for those who've been shooting for a while.
It's easy to get complacent, think you know it all.
And that's when you stop being open to new information, new techniques.
Speaking of learning, the guide talked about learning from mistakes.
Oh yeah, that's a goldmine of information right there.
Your own mistakes, indeed the mistakes of others.
Exactly. Analyzing those mistakes, it's like a free lesson.
It helps you understand why the rules are there.
And how to avoid making those same mistakes yourself.
It's like learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself.
Aha, exactly. And that's why it's so valuable to be part of a good shooting community.
Okay, yeah, how does that tie in?
Well, when you're surrounded by responsible shooters, you can all learn from each other.
Share experiences, best practices, that kind of thing.
It's like a collective effort to raise the bar for everyone.
It's not just about individual responsibility anymore.
Right. It becomes a shared commitment to safety, a culture of looking out for one another.
That's powerful, and it makes a lot of sense.
And it can have a real impact on the overall safety of the sport.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful, I gotta say.
I'm glad to hear that. It's important stuff.
I've always known safety is crucial, but I hadn't really thought about it on this level before.
Yeah, there's always more to learn, always ways to improve.
So for our listeners who are maybe thinking, okay, this is great, but where do I start?
Good question.
What are some practical takeaways they can implement right away?
Well, the first thing is to cultivate that mindset of respect.
Respect for the firearms, the rules, the people around you.
Exactly. Understanding that firearms demand our full attention and responsible handling.
Always, no exceptions.
Right, and that respect goes hand in hand with awareness.
Being aware of your surroundings, your actions, the potential consequences of everything.
Whether you're at the range or anywhere else you might be handling a firearm.
It's like constantly evaluating the situation, thinking ahead.
Exactly. And of course, actively fighting complacency.
That's a big one. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, always pushing yourself to learn more, refine your skills.
Maintaining those high safety standards, even when you think you've got it all down.
It's a continuous journey of improvement.
This has been fantastic, really insightful.
Glad you think so.
But before we move on, I have to ask,
Okay, what's on your mind?
what's that one final thought, that piece of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, let me think. You know, for me, it comes down to this. Firearm ownership is a privilege, not a right.
That's powerful. I like that.
It's a responsibility we carry every time we pick up a firearm.
Can you break that down a bit? What does that responsibility look like in practice?
It means we have a duty to use firearms safely, ethically, and responsibly. We also have a responsibility to be good ambassadors for the shooting sports community.
Showing by our actions that we deserve that trust.
Exactly. Every time we handle a firearm, we're representing the entire community.
It's not just about us as individuals.
Right. It's much bigger than that.
Our actions can shape how people view shooting sports, influence laws, even impact the future of the sport.
It's about acknowledging that collective responsibility, working together to ensure that shooting remains safe and accessible for everyone.
For generations to come.
That's the goal.
So it's about personal accountability, but also that shared commitment to the well-being of the entire shooting community.
Exactly. We're all in this together.
And by upholding those high safety standards, promoting responsible ownership.
We can create a positive and sustainable future for shooting sports.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been an amazing conversation, really eye-opening.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take their safety practices to the next level.
I hope so too. It's all about continuous improvement.
Before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
What can you do, starting today, to make yourself a safer shooter?
That's a great question to ponder.
Maybe it's committing to a more thorough equipment check,
Could be.
seeking out some expert training, or even just having a conversation with a fellow shooter about safety best practices.
All great ideas.
Every step we take towards greater awareness and responsibility, it strengthens the entire shooting community.
Well said. It's a team effort.
All right, that's a wrap for this deep dive into shooting sports safety.
Been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks for joining us, and remember, stay safe out there.
Always.
It's like we're all responsible for shaping the future of shooting sports, you know?
It really is a collective effort, yeah.
Our actions have a ripple effect, for sure.
And it's not just about staying safe ourselves.
Right. It's about making sure the whole community thrives.
Absolutely. Got to protect the sport we love.
This deep dive has been, wow, so much more than I expected.
Glad you're finding it valuable.
I mean, I always knew safety was important, but...
It's more than just a checklist, right?
Exactly. We've really gotten into the nitty-gritty.
The why, the how, the mindset behind it all.
Before we wrap up, I'm curious.
Yeah.
If you could pick one thing you wish every shooter understood about safety,
Oh, that's a tough one.
newbie or seasoned pro, what would it be?
You know, for me, it all comes down to mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
Safety's not about being perfect, because nobody is.
We all make mistakes. It happens.
Exactly. But if you're mindful of the risks, you're more likely to catch those mistakes.
Before they turn into something serious.
It's about being present, aware of what you're doing, every step of the way.
Takes the pressure off needing to be some kind of flawless expert.
Right. Just got to be engaged, thinking things through.
So safety becomes this ongoing process, not just a list of rules.
It's constantly assessing, adapting, always striving to be better.
This whole deep dive has been a real journey, hasn't it?
It has. We've covered so much ground.
And I hope our listeners are walking away with
Yeah, a renewed sense of purpose when it comes to safety.
feeling empowered to take their skills to the next level.
Absolutely. Safety first, always.
I want to leave everyone with this one last thought.
Okay, shoot.
What can you do starting today to be a safer shooter?
Love that question. Makes you really think.
Maybe it's finally committing to that thorough equipment check,
Yeah, those are important.
or seeking out some professional training, getting expert feedback,
Always good to brush up on those skills.
even just having a conversation with a buddy about safety best practices.
Sometimes just talking it through can make a difference.
Every little step we take
It all adds up.
makes the entire community stronger, safer.
That's the goal.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive on shooting sports safety.
Been a great discussion. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember,
Stay safe out there.
absolutely, until next time.